What's up, guys? Welcome to part 2 of our NP231 transfer case rebuild. So part 1 we covered everything from disassembling, and now we're going to go ahead and reassemble it with new seals, new gaskets, bearings, all that. And we're going to be doing our slip yoke eliminator kits. We're going to be changing some stuff along the way. And I told you in the last video I was going to show you the side-by-side comparison of the new chain and the old chain, and here we go. So that's the old chain. Let's see, and they're just a slight bit longer on the old one, a little bit of stretch, so it wasn't in terrible shape. But that's how you tell if a chain's wore out. If you can move it that way a lot, but each joint will get a little bit of wear. It doesn't seem like much, but when you get that many joints together, pivot points over time, you can end up with a stretched chain. You get some slack, some clunking and engaging and disengaging when you're getting on and off the throttle while on four-wheel drive. So we're going this deep, we're putting a new chain in anyway. So let's go ahead and get started. One of the first things we're gonna do is we've got our housings all cleaned up and everything and our parts. So we're gonna go ahead and put our new roller bearing or needle bearing setup in here, cage bearing, whatever you wanna call it. And when we pulled the old one out, the numbers were on the top side. So matter of fact, we still got it sitting in over here. So we're gonna put it back in the same way. And we're gonna do that with race installer, which represents just like that. And boom goes the dynamite. You notice the tone difference as it went in, and it went in real nice and easy. So cool. Went in way easier than it came out. So all right, on to the next part. All right, so one of the next things we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press this bearing in, and what we're going to do is go ahead and put this lock ring back on it. And use the wrong pliers because still haven't got the other ones. Okay, so what we're going to do is, we've already cleaned this, we got it snap locked in. So what we're going to do is take our race driver, set on there just like the others. We're going to tap it down nice and easy until we get flush with the housing. So that's why it's crucial to put that ring on before you go pressing it in, and then you realize you pressed it too far, and yeah, you're out of luck. By the way, guys, in the last video, it was very late. We both worked very long days, so this housing, we forgot to go ahead and knock this seal out. So when we're going to be replacing, it goes on here. This will be one that gets a nice little thin bead of silicone. We still got to clean that up, but so we didn't forget about it, guys. And just like Chubb said, just tap it in. Guys, this probably sounds a lot more violent than it actually is. My workbench sucks. I'm in the process of getting new ones, but for now these are having to do, so it sounds a lot worse than what it actually is. So you just want to bring it down just enough that that's snug and not really moving around much. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press in our other bearing over here since we got our housing laid out. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and put our next bearing in over here on the output for the front drive shaft. So these kits, and most like any kit you're going to get, it will fit like probably work for near about any NP231 or whatever. So you're going to have some parts in there that are like, I don't know why I have these, I don't need them. So rather than make 6 different kits, they make one kit with all the parts in it. So that being said, in some applications this bearing probably takes a snap ring somewhere, but in this application we're going to put the beveled edge down because it'll go in a lot easier. Put your numbers facing up. We'll set it down in, and we're going to go ahead and take our bearing erase driver and just tap it in until it bottoms out, and then we'll be going back in with the lock ring that came out before. And you'll hear that tone change. That's how you know you've bottomed out. Actually, there's a couple of ways to know you bottomed out, but some of y'all don't get to experience that. So you can see here where you can, you know you're good and seated, and that's where you want to be. Now we can go ahead and go back in and put our lock ring in. And you can just walk around with your pick and just make sure everything's good and seated. Last thing you want is that not being seated, that bearing making its way out. So got that bearing in, that bearing in. So we're good. We can go ahead and work on getting these. All right, so we got our O-ring here, a little plastic ring. I intentionally didn't do that in the tear down just yet because I didn't want to lose them. But this is where your range selection or mode selection, mode selection, I'm sorry, goes. So you'll make sure that's good and cleaned out. Okay, and I'm going to go back in with our new O-ring. Go ahead and clean our little Teflon guide. Surprised the kit didn't come with it, but ours doesn't really have any wear on it, and the O-ring does the sealing anyway, so I guess we're okay. So just slide your O-ring in like so. And then we'll go ahead and put our little Teflon guide back in. And just like that, let's go ahead and flip this bad boy over and start building it from the inside. Alright guys, so we got it flipped back over. Now we're going to go ahead and set our Planetary setup back in. We've already got cleaned up. We're good there. I think that was, snap rings. Okay guys, so the next thing we got to do is we've got another blind hole down here to pull a bearing out of. It's actually this bearing here. It's a needle cage bearing with a back on it and all that. That's where shaft rides down in. So we're going to go ahead and get this pulled out, and we'll go ahead and get our Planetary out. So we're going to go ahead and get it set down in there. So this is one you really want to pay attention to. This sets your depth for the shaft, the main shaft. So you want to be careful, and when you go to pull it out, make sure. So this one was sitting pretty much flush with this ridge, because unfortunately you don't really have any place for it to bottom out or anything like that for any reference. So you just got to go by the way it was before. So go ahead and set it down in there like that. Got the proper driver size, and just tap it in. All right, that's about where it was. So on to the next part. Okay guys, now that we got our bearing assembly in there in the blind holes, so what we're going to do is go ahead and we've put the Planetary up in. I've got a block underneath here. So what we're going to do is go around with a dead blow and tap this down until we can get to our lock ring, lock that back in place, and then go from there. And boom goes the dynamite. Don't worry if the bearing walks up a little bit, we can go back around with a dead blow once we get the lock ring in, and it'll pull right back down. So we got that. Let's go ahead and put our lock ring back on. Alright, just like that, boom goes dynamite. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and, while we got the case up this way, we're going to go ahead and put our seal in here on the output for the front. And let's see. Yeah, we should be good. It's got a little bit of a lip on there, but it collapses, and the main part of it's below the metal housing, so we're fine. So just put the race driver on there, and let's listen for that tone change. And just like that, we're seated. Alright guys, so we got our little face plate here, cover the bearing and all that, the seal housing. So we're going to go ahead and we got our new one. We're going to make sure it's facing the right way, got it all cleaned up, got all the old silicone off of it. We're going to go ahead and just press it down until it's flush. You guys know the drill by now, just listen for the tone change. Good idea to stop and check once you get going. Make sure it's not like too cockeyed or sometimes these seals can be a bit of a pain and walk on you. So looks like everything's pretty good. All right, we're good and flush. We'll come back in a little bit and silicone this and get it on, and then go from there. All right, so the other fork, everything was good with the wear tabs and all that, but this one we've got in the kit. So we're going to go ahead and change these out while we're at it. They're not really too bad a shape, but we're in this far, we got the parts, we might as well. So we're going to pull them off, and they slide off just like that. Make sure you got the right size ones, compare it up to your old ones. It's new for new. Alright. So we got everything good and seated. Now, one thing too, when you go to take all this apart, make sure you got your collar right back the same way. That fits in there nice and new and tight. What will happen is these wear out and you get extra play in there. It can make it harder with shifting and all that. So nice and good and snug. We got it back in the same way. So we're gonna go ahead. All right guys, so got a Planetary everything in. What we're gonna do is go ahead and slide this back in here like so. Just nice and easy. We just put that fresh O-ring in there. You want to make sure you don't pop any of that out. And cool. We're in there like swimwear. We've got our little sensor back here for. Cool. So now we can go ahead and put our bottom fork in. So it's got wear tabs on it. Everything's actually pretty good on this one. It looks like this thing might have actually been replaced at one point. It fits pretty good and snug, so we're gonna go ahead and roll with it. The kit didn't actually have anything in there for that one, just the other one, so go ahead and set it. Set it down in your groove. We'll let you. There you go. Got to kind of stick your tongue out the right way and all that. Yeah. All right. All right, guys. Now that we got our fork and shift collar and all that updated, new guides, we're gonna go ahead and slide it down in here like so. There we go. Okay. So, nice and easy, just like that. And so, make sure you get your collar orientated right. You can see here with the, I guess the shorter side or whatever. It's normally easy to tell because you can tell where the wear's been, where the synchro's been engaging and disengaging. So we're going to go ahead and next thing we're going to do is actually take the guts off of this shaft and get ready for our new shaft from the slip yoke eliminator kit. All right, so we got our two gears off of the old shaft here, and if you'll notice the difference between the old one and the new one, And what we're doing it, you know, the old one, this is where the yoke would slide back and forth, hence slip yoke. So we're eliminating that, hence slip yoke eliminator, with we're actually going with like a standard length is what they call. It's a real common one or whatever. You can actually go even shorter than this with a real short like stub nose, which brings it almost flat to the case. We're not going that crazy. We're just going with a standard kit, so makes it a lot shorter. It's actually got a new yoke that's gonna actually go on and bolt on with a nut, just like the front yoke does, instead of sliding on. So it's much stronger than factory. It's gonna give us a little bit better driveline angle too. It won't be as sharp, so we can do away with the gap in the bottom pan that you put on there with the lift kit normally. So it'll be back up and look right. So that being said, you can see here too, and on these shafts, this is actually where your lubrication comes through from your pump that we're actually going to be putting on in a second. So the lubrication actually goes through there, squirts out all through here. So we'll lubricate this a little bit with some oil. Done a little bit as we go. It's not super crucial that you do. I mean, it's a good idea too to put lube. Some people put like grease and stuff in there and all that. Don't know that I'm such a fan of that because of this. I mean, you got such a small screen, and yes, that grease might break down a little bit over time, but I just see it clogging it up. So a little bit of oil as you go, lubricating some stuff, which I probably should have notated more as we go, but we've done. So anywho, when you put it back together and put fluid in it, you can spin it around a little bit to pump the fluid through, and that'll pump it all through and lubricate everything. And you got to think, when you put fluid in, I mean, the fluid level is going to be like up to here anyways a good bit, so it doesn't take much to spin it and everything's lubricated. So anyways, on to the next thing. Let's go ahead and get this new shaft put together, and then we'll go ahead and drop it down in. Okay guys, so if you got your old shaft right next to you, you can just literally take the parts off, clean them, and then lubricate the new shaft and slide them right back onto the same orientation, so you make sure you don't get them flipped around or anything. But you know you got it right if you got your groove here, which we're going to put our new lock ring in. So, and that's supplied in the kit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put our new snap ring on. Make sure we're up and good and tight. So keep wanting to walk back. And boom goes the dynamite. So you go around, make sure you're all good and seated, which we are. And cool. Alright, on to the next step. Okay guys, so now we got our snap ring on. So we got all our guts on the new shaft. Got it lubricated up here where it's going to go down into the bearing. And the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the chain around this, put the chain around this, and actually set them both down in at the same time in here in the transfer case. So we're going to go ahead and do that next. Alright guys, so we got our chain set up with the 2 gears, or 2 shafts in there. Went ahead and put a little bit, I said earlier engine oil, but I'm actually using ATF because this actually takes ATF plus 4. So went ahead and lubed or pre-lubed the surface where the collar meets the bottom side of that gear. So it's all good. Got everything set down in there. We're going to go ahead and a little bit of lube on this for when we get ready to put the top half on. That'll go in that new bearing. So in any other places, I think are down in here, which I don't really think. We've got a bearing. It's going to ride there, so we'll go ahead and lube that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is going to put our spring on here. We're going to put that back on. We don't want to forget that. That keeps everything nice and snug. And we're going to put our detent back in. Okay guys, I'm going to stop myself here. So there's a little O-ring, or what's left of one on this detent. And if you got a kit, it should come with one. So we'll go ahead and pull that out. Slide the new one on. Just like, yeah. Go ahead and clean it up, make sure we don't have anything all nice and dirty. All right. Let's go ahead and slide this bad boy back in here. Man, it might be a little bit fun trying to start the threads depending on what range you're in. So just go ahead and run it down finger tight. And then we'll come back with the 7/8 wrench. It's all nice and dirty. Clean it up. And you don't have to get ham-fisted or stupid or anything with it, just good and snug. So, all right, that's back in. Got our spring in. We'll go ahead and clean up and put our magnet back in there. Which there really wasn't much of anything on this magnet, which is pretty good. And there really wasn't any wear much in this thing at all. So, but it's good peace of mind at almost 200,000 miles to have it all fresh. Slide that back down in there. Okay, kids, so we've got our gear set, chain, all that back in and everything. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and run us about a 3/16 wide bead of silicone all around here. You don't want to over splooge it because this tightens together and it's going to be a real thin seal, so don't get stupid with it. All right. So we got our bead of silicone around here. Like I said, you don't have to get crazy with it. Just a nice thin, about 3/16 1/4" bead. Next thing we're going to do is we've got our pickup screen. We've already cleaned it all up, cleaned out the tube and everything. Everything looks good there. I like to use a cleaner like Simple Green or Mean Green or something like that. Brake clean's a little harsh on the plastic, but that's up to you. Just make sure it's good and clean. The tube's all cleaned out. Guys, we're going to take our O-ring, slide it over. Already put a little bit of ATF on there that slides in real nice. We're gonna flip our pump around, and it's easier to go ahead and just take it out of its seat so it sits in there nice and flush. You'll feel it bottom out, and then down in there like that, and then like that. Actually, I'm sorry. This needs to go on the outside, but it doesn't want to, so it wants to be a pain in the butt. Alright, so make sure we got a good clean surface. Make sure your dowels are in good, and just like that, we'll go ahead and flip this bad boy over and set it on. Line up your inner gear on your pump. Turn around a little bit till you find that. Okay. And then make sure you got your dowels lined up so they slide on in. Alright. That is looking good, kids. So next thing we're going to do is go back and go ahead and put our bolts back in. And I think we want to put a little bit of blue Loctite on those to keep them from backing out. And remember this one, the top center, I think it was here. I might have been that one. One of them had that funky 12 point bolt, so we're going to put it back in. So we're going to put our bolts in and torque them down to, I believe it was, I don't want to lie to you guys, so yep, to 20 to 25 foot-pounds. So We're gonna go ahead and get those in. And it was this one, guys. I'm sorry that had that funky 12-point bolt. Don't know why it's different, don't ask me, but that's where it needs to go. So we're gonna put them in, torque them down to about 25 foot-pounds, and we're gonna come back and go to the next step. All right, so now we got our case bolted together, everything good, got our main shaft lined up, everything torqued. Next thing we're gonna do is we gotta put our new speedo gear set up on. So there's a bottom snap ring, well, it's bottom if it's standing up. We're gonna put that one on, put the gear on, then put the top one on, and then we can put the new tail housing on. All right, cool. So we got our bottom snap ring on, our speedo gear on, and now we've got our top snap ring on. So we're gonna go ahead and put some silicone around the new tail shaft housing, like we did on the last one, just a nice thin beads, all we need. And we'll go ahead and set it down, put the new bolts in, and torque them down. Let's see, the torque on these is 15 to 20 foot-pounds, so pick your fancy. All right, so went ahead and put a nice little bead of silicone. Got a little crazy there, but don't worry about that little guy. When I did it on this side because it's real defined here, and you're just kind of out in the open there. So now we know we got it where we need. So we're gonna go ahead and flip this over, and nice and easy, just set her down. And boom. Okay, guys, so we've got the new cover on, got the silicone on. So we reuse the old hardware, and these holes go all the way through. So we're gonna need to put a little bit of silicone on each one of these bolts to seal them up. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, run around and torque them down to about 15, 20 foot-pounds, and then we're good to go on to the next step. All right, so we got everything torqued down on the tail shaft housing. We're gonna go ahead and apply a nice little thin bead of ATF on here to kind of lube this up. We're gonna go ahead and slide the new yoke on, and get a little snug, and there it goes. Okay, cool. All right, then what we're gonna do is go ahead and put a little bead of actually put a little bead of silicone right in around here and snug it down with the nut. We're actually gonna put red Loctite on there and then torque it down to about 105, 110 foot-pounds. So, all right, so went ahead and got a new O-ring for the speed sensor. We're just gonna go ahead and slide it on in. There you go. You feel it bottom out. We'll put our bracket back on for it. All right, now we got it clocked right. The tongues are in the slots. We'll go ahead and tighten this down, and then we're good to go on to the next step. All right, we got a shift lever on, just nothing but a lock washer and a lock nut. Put a little bit of blue Loctite on there just to make sure to be safe. Just snug it down. You don't have to get crazy with it. There's this little rubber. So, put your little rubber star washer in there, and just push it on with your pick. It'll pretty much set itself down in there. You just kind of push, get it to seat. All right, so what you should end up with is it sits down in there smooth like in that. We're gonna put our nut on there, torque it to 130 foot-pounds, and then we're good. And then we're just gonna come back, put our housing on here, put a bead of silicone around and torque it down, and then we're good. And then that'll be it. All right, so we got our yoke on and everything, torqued down. Next thing we're gonna do is we went in and put a little bead of silicone around here. Now, you gotta be really careful when you put this housing back on, and I think the bolts only go one way anyways, but just to be safe, there's a port right here for oil to come through and to lubricate the bearing and all that fun stuff. Make sure you line up this notch here with that hole, and your bolt should all line up. Went ahead and lubed it with a little bit of ATF on the seal, and we'll just go ahead and do it like so. And nice. Okay, cool. Alright. Cool. And we'll go ahead and snug those down, and I want to say it was like 15 or 20 foot-pounds. I have to figure it out. I'll look it up real quick, but and then we'll go from there. All right, so I had to double check myself real quick, but the torque spec for these is 16 foot-pounds for these little ones, so we'll go ahead and a cross pattern and go ahead and snug them on down. All right, guys, there you have it. That's rebuilding a NP231 or NV231. Depending on the year ranges and maybe your application, it might be slightly different, but this will actually work across pretty good bands, whether you got it in a Chevrolet or Dodge or something like that. Like I said, this was the J because it was in a Jeep. And we covered doing a slip yoke eliminator kit with a standard length, so everything's good. All we got to do is hang it back on the transmission and fill it full of fluid. But now it's time for just what the doctor ordered, good old Dr. Pepper, because that's what I run on. So until next time, guys, remember, stock is not an option.